Alright, so let's continue working on our profile page. So before we go ahead and do that, let's see how it works. So currently we are on the home page, and on our feed there's nothing. And this is how the profile functionality looks like, the profile page. And if you click on the edit profile, it leads us to the settings page. And now let's go back, and as you can see, there's nothing on our feed right now. And if you go to a different profile, as you can see that now the settings button is not there, and we have a button that says follow Jerome, and Jerome is the name of the username. And if you click on it, then now it shows unfollow. And if you click on this again, it will show us again follow and follow. Now if you go back to the feed, we see that since we are following this user, we have the articles from this user. Now let's go ahead and see how the profile page is implemented. We have a bunch of we're importing a bunch of things, and we have this edit profile settings, where if this is a user, then we show that edit profile settings link. Otherwise we return null. And the next component is the follow user button. And again, if the user is logged in user, then we don't show this button. Otherwise we show this button. And here again, we do some, if the user, if we are following this user, then we show specific classes. And we also have a function called handle click that does some if the user is following, then we follow, otherwise unfollow. And yeah, and finally we render the button. And next we do map state to props, map dispatch to props. This is related to Redux, and here we are just populating the state. And on map dispatch to props, we are just initializing functions that does various things. Next we have the profile component itself. It's a class-based component, and inside this component we have two lifecycle functions. And the first one is component build mount, which basically what it does is it gets the profile based on the username, as well as it fetches all the articles by this particular user. And on component will unmount, it calls the unload function. And what it does, if you go scroll up, sorry, on unload, it dispatches the type profile page unloaded. Now if you go to the reducer and profile.js, if you look at it, it just resets the state, right? Like it just dumps the state. So that's what it does. Now let's go back to the profile.js component. And the next we have is the Rendertabs method. And what this does is it renders those two buttons that we saw for toggling state. So for example, this one over here. So if you go to the, so yeah, there you go, my article, favorite article. So that's what it does. It renders those two buttons. And we also have a function called onset, and as well as the render method. And inside the render method, if the profile does not exist, then we return null. And its user is basically if the current user is the same as the logged in user, right? The profile's username is the same as the current user. And inside the profile page, we render some JSX, where on the top we show the user's information, such as their image, username, and their bio. There you go. And also we display the, so if you go and add some bio, which let's say I love to make coding tutorials. Actually, you know what, let's say I make videos on ClojureScript. And now if you update the settings and go back to the profile page, there you have it. So now that's being rendered over there. And the next is the bio. So there you go. And also we show the buttons, right? The edit profile settings as well as follow user button. In this case, we don't show the follow user button because it's us. But if you go to, for example, Jerome, then we will see the follow Jerome button. And on the below is the JSX for displaying the articles. So yeah, so that's where we call the Rendertabs method, which renders those two tabs, and also we import the articles list, and that article list the component is responsible for displaying the articles. So yeah, so that's what it would have looked. So that's what it does, that render method, when it gets called. But let's revert back the changes. Okay, so now that we know what this component does, let's start working on our profile page. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to display the image of the user. So we're going to add the image tag, and we will also delete the string, the placeholder string that we added in the previous episode. And now if you save, we should see the image. Let's also add the class so that so user image. Okay, next we need to add the h4 tag as well as the p tag. So h4, this will be the username, and p will be the bio. So currently we don't have any bio, but we can always go back to the settings and change that. So let's go to settings and add a bio saying I make videos on ClojureScript. Now I make ClojureScript tutorials. So let's save it and let's go back to the profile, and as you can see, the bio is now being displayed. Cool. So the next step is to implement the edit profile settings functionality. So let's create a component. Actually, you know what, let's just first what we need to do is we need to declare a variable, and we'll say user is let's set it to true. Later on we will implement this boolean flag, so yeah, let's implement the edit profile setting. So let's go to this component and see what's there. So if the user exists, then we display the component, right? So when the user exists, then we show an anchor tag, and let's also copy all the classes from this component, and let's add it to this anchor tag. As well as let's add the icon as well as the class name. So icon gear A, ion gear A, sorry, and also copy the text, edit profile settings, and now let's save it, and there you have it. Also let's make sure we have the indentation right. So now also let's add a space, and there you go. So that looks about right. Okay, so now we have the component ready. Let's refactor this out into a component. So we will name our component edit profile settings, and this component accepts a single argument, the boolean flag. So if the user exists, then we show this button, and let's replace everything with the component, and obviously we have to pass the user. And yeah, so now that is done, the next step is to implement the follow button, right? So the follow button is just the opposite. So if the user, we'll call it follow user button, and again it accepts an argument called user, and we'll say when not user, so if it's not the user, then we display the follow button. But again, we have to do so for now we will just implement the UI. We will add the on-click handler in the next episode. So yeah, so let's get the, let's add if it is not a user, then what we will do is let's copy the classes, and also so let's add a button, and this time, since there is some logic with the classes, we're going to add a class, and inside the class we can either pass it as a string or as a vector. So in this case we will pass a vector, and we will just pass this sort of string, and we need to add some Boolean logic. Let's also pass the user as a second argument. So if we are following this user, then we add the button secondary class. Otherwise we add the button outline secondary, right? So that in that way we are displaying a different UI of the button based if the user is following the user or not. Next we need to add the icon, and as well as add the icon plus the class plus round. And next, right below that, we need to add again another Boolean logic. If we are following this user, then we need to display unfollow, right? Otherwise we display follow. Now to test this component, let's add it to our profile page, and for now let's just say false, so that this component displays, as well as pass the profile state as the second argument. So now we show now we see the follow button, and let's disable the edit profile settings component, and let's also add an extra space in front of follow and unfollow. Awesome. So looks like our component is working. Next, let's copy the I think it's in the header. Yeah, let's copy the Google string dependency from here, and let's add it to our profile component. So instead of adding the extra space by ourselves, we can just use the unscape entities. So right after the icon, we can add that, and now we don't need to add that extra space by ourselves. So we can revert the changes, as well as we also need to add it to the edit profile settings. And let's also enable the edit profile settings in our component. And also, instead of saying false, we will just pass the user. Awesome. So now we have the two components working. We show the user image. The next is, let's also implement the logic for the user. So for that we need to import the auth state, and what we're going to do is we're going to check if the username of the auth state is, so let's so yeah, what we need is the username. So let's extract the username. So what we need to do is, if the username of the auth state is same as the profile state, then we know that this is the logged in user, right? So yeah, it's just a matter of using the equal function. So now this should be set to true, obviously, because we are logged in. Now if you copy this, and instead of true, hard-coded true, we're just going to copy this. So now everything looks good. Now if you go to Jerome, in this case we cannot click the username. We will fix that in the next episode, but yeah, so it seems that Jerome is the username, so let's copy and let's replace from our username to Jerome. Now we don't see the link to the settings page, right? So it means that everything is working as expected. And for now our button is not working, so what we need to do is we need to fix that. So we need to add the href, and we can also use the href function from Reddit Frontend Easy. So we can copy this. So we can import the Reddit Frontend Easy as a dependency as RFE, and this function, this module exposes a function called href. So RFE/href, and now the argument we're going to pass is routes/settings. So if you invoke this is going to give us the /settings href string. So now if we click on the edit profile setting, it should take us to the settings page, sorry. So awesome, now that is working. The next step is to implement those toggle buttons. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the render tabs, and let's copy the Rendertabs method from here and copy it right on top of the profiles page. And yeah, it's just a matter of converting this JSX into Hiccup, right? So there's the UL, which wraps over both the buttons, and the child is a list item with a class of nav item. So yeah, so that's the button, my article, favorite article. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do this. So as you can see, it's inside the list element is an anchor tag. Looks like there's something, the UI is not working. Oh yeah, so the text should be inside the anchor tag, not outside. So so far it looks good. I think we are at 20-minute mark now. In the next video, what we will do is we will fix the styling, as well as we will implement the articles, right? So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.